Hello, everybody. We're back again. We had a weird thing happen, and I don't know what happened there, but it looks like it's resolved. Something was going weird. I don't know what that was all about. YouTube and Twitch just started tripping all of a sudden. I'm trying to put my glasses on because it's bright as all get out. Folks, I don't know if you're watching, whether you're watching live or after the fact. I'm going to assume that you saw the news, and if you didn't, I'll preface and try to build best I can for what the heck is going on with this business. So let's get with this. I don't even know what to think about this thing here. So if you're on social media, you would have seen the LIBERO financial official account announce that there's a DAO out there, proposal for your vote. If you're in the LIBERO Bank, and this is only LIBERO Bank, then you are eligible to vote. And many people didn't even know they have a DAO. They have a DAO. It's at libero.financial, the bottom left. Click on LIBERO DAO, and you can access the DAO. They don't use it very much. It's primarily for when they want to change fees to a drastic degree. So if they're significantly changing the fee structure or significantly changing the way rewards work or something like that, that's when you're going to see that they are changing or putting a DAO out there to get people's votes. And again, you're not going to be able to vote if you just have your token sitting in your wallet. You must be staked in the LIBERO Bank in order for it to calculate for you, because it's calculating based on ex-LIBERO. That is your stake as far as they are concerned. So there's a couple of things here I'm going to talk about. First of all, the fact that this came up and the fact that it came up now, I'm disappointed that the LIBERO team didn't give my credit, because the fact that this exists at all as a vote is an affirmation of what I described was the problem with LIBERO in the first place. It is them affirming my research as accurate and correct as to the root of the problem, and it's them creating a potential solution. Now, I want to talk about what the DAO is proposing, because I think it's important for you to know how this is supposed to work and what it is that they're trying to do here. So this, as you see, they're talking about reduce the emission, increase tax to save from market sell-off, proposal to save LIBERO from fear market sell-off, prepare for V2. There is no fear sell-off. It's not a fear-based situation. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here is you have people who are basically gaming the system, taking the LIBERO rewards and selling them, and then buying back into LIBERO, because LIBERO offers more rewards, but there's excessive sell pressure on LIBERO. There's no fear in the sells for this project. There may be fear in other aspects. General speaking, people that are trying to dump out to USD Tether. Tether lost its peg recently, so there is that, of course. I'm saying specifically for LIBERO Financial, it is not accurate to say that it is fear-driven. I guarantee you, people are not dumping it because of fear. People are dumping it because they can, and they're taking it and they're selling it and they're sending it back into LIBERO so that they can claim the rewards on the LIBERO side. That's what's really happening. Now, they're talking about, crypto markets falling. This is factual. Projects are suffering from the fear and sell-off. That's true, just not with LIBERO. LIBERO's still inventing, bringing projects. Yeah. LIBERO helped burn and locked a bunch of LIBERO circulating supply. They're in the process of making LIBERO V2. I want to explain why I'm heavily concerned about them going to a V2. Outside of the fact that V2s tend to piss off investors more often than they don't, and they tend to be screwed up more often than they're not. The fact that this is going to a V2 tells me that when they put the contract out, they made assumptions they couldn't back up. And they decided, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and retrofit the LIBERO contract into LIBERO and add some of the LIBERO mechanics into LIBERO. Now, there's some logic to that, but I'm going to come back to this. Here's where I had some issues. Anti-dump resistance. Of course, in LIBERO, you have the circuit breaker concept designed to stop excessive sells. hyper nuking. The nuking is a current thing now, but it's not. I don't know if this is going to move the needle because it's still based on volume at the end of the day. Dynamic emission on liquidity. Auto compounding miner. So they want to put the miner on the Libero side, which I think is a big mistake. Drip improved system, which absolutely gives me red flags because drip is a scam. But here's the thing. When they go and they explain what's going to happen based on this, they're presenting it as if V2 is a foregone conclusion. It's not. The V2 is one of the choices. Now, the problem is that the way they presented the choices basically gives you no choice, because if you look at it, half emission keeps cell tax, half emission increase the cell tax to 30, which forces a slippage of 44% in pancake swap. 1% emission keep the cell tax, 1% emission increase the cell tax. No change or no Libero V2. I want to break down what they're saying because I don't know that they're clear about what they're saying. When they say emissions, if you look up here, and again, they're not clear about this, but they're basically saying it's useless to print more Libero when no one's buying it. People don't realize that Libero is not a permanently constrained inventory. It can be minted, more is created. It's part of the rebase function. So Libero was their answer to create a token that had a heavily constrained supply, increasingly constrained with recurrent burns. That was what Crypto Addict was talking about, for the people that might have interest in one that was designed to go in high price. The problem is that they launched Libero at the worst part of a bear season, meaning it was never going to go higher than a certain threshold, and they never got it on the other two exchanges. So because, and they say it here, CX did the rest did never happen. This is a token project, Libero, the whole ecosystem that appeals to an American audience. Americans cannot buy it on centralized exchanges without hoops like VPN to do DigiFinex, and then you might get caught because you have to do KYC. So it's not the right answer. The right answer is to get it done on Bitmart, get it done on LBank. That didn't happen. But when they say down here it's useless to print more, no one's buying it, this is kind of a duh, right? Because if you think about excessive supply, when I found that they were basically taking the Libero rewards and selling it as they got it and then dumping into Libero, the problem is that this creates volume, right? But it also creates sell pressure. You see red, people are selling. You're not seeing any kind of buy pressure, even though there are dips. The whales are buying off the dips, but everybody else is kind of nervous because they don't know where the bottom resistance is. So the problem is that you now have an excessive supply. You have too much Libero sitting in reserves because there's been so much sell pressure, all driven off the fact that you give rewards through LIBERO Bank, through LIBERO Bank, through Liberator Bank, plus your wallet rebase reflections or interest, quote unquote. So now you get all this Libero thrown at you. And if you're a whale, and we'll get to this in a second, you can basically sell that Libero, use that proceed, buy Libero, stack the Libero, claim the benefits on Libero while Libero tanks. That's what's currently happening. So what they're proposing to do is basically to drop the percentage of how much you get through these outlets. So your wallet, the direct interest ones, that amount would go down. The frequency would stay the same, but the amount would go down. The amount that you get in rewards in the banks, that would go down. The amount you get from the Liberator, that would go down. They then say, well, there'll still be a pretty high darn percentage, pretty still high, but it ain't going to be as high as what we promised you up front. LIBERO Bank stakers will have half of that, which means that affirms what I said. Because the fact that they're giving these rewards higher, when you stake it in the bank, it allowed whales to take those excess Libero, sell it off, and then buy into Libero and just keep performing arbitrage over and over again. This would slow that process down. It doesn't solve the problem, but it at least slows it down. Then they said increase the sell tax temporarily from 25 to 30% until V2 is active. So the ones to fear have to think more. That's not going to move the needle. It's not going to move the needle because, again, it's not fear-driven that they're selling. They're selling because they don't see a reason to keep it, because we haven't been given a reason to keep it because it keeps going red, and most of them are FOMO selling. It's not fear. I guarantee you the vast majority of these are either the FOMO sells or they're whales who are performing arbitrage on the system. That's what's happening. This is not a fear-based reaction. I guarantee you this. Then they say, since we're going to up the sell tax for Libero, we're going to up the sell tax for Libero too. That's somewhat good. But nobody's selling Libera right now, except for the pump and dump happening on DigiFinex. This isn't going to stop that. If you have your tokens in LIBERO Bank, you got 3 days to come in here and place your vote. All you need to do is go into libero.financial from your wallet. On the left at the bottom says LIBERO DAO. You click on that, you'll get taken here. It's the very first one on the list. And then you should choose one of these options. Now, the reason I said this is a trap, essentially, is because all 4 of these top options say V2 it is. This is the only one that says no V2, but doing that one means they're not going to fix the problem either. This one is basically let's hold the line and wait it out and hope it passes, cross our fingers. That's what the last one is. Now, if you notice on the people who voted, you've already got whales. And just to put in perspective, these 2 guys or ladies, whatever, would have had to spend $100,000 to get over 100 million Libero. They're whales by core definition of said. They support the sell tax. Why? Because whales don't give a damn about a sell tax. They're going to sell anyway. They don't care. But what does concern them is that they're not getting as much anymore because the price is so darn low. So while they're doing arbitrage, because it keeps going, like they're almost sacrificing themselves, because it keeps going down, they're getting less and less money for the Libero that they're selling. So it's in their interest to stop the bleed, as it were. So you notice whales all like this. Very few people, and I think it's because they don't understand, but very few people are voting for the no change, no Libero option. Very few. It's losing currently. Most common is the let's just go ahead and decrease how much is distributed to people, increase the sell tax. I don't think that's going to move the needle, in my personal opinion, because it isn't really solving the problem. It'll delay the inevitable. I don't think it's going to stop what's happening. Now, if you notice, almost 400 million, but again, half of that is whales. So just like with UST and Luna, the whales can influence this vote in their favor. I'm curious that they all support this, but it is what it is. How did I vote? I voted this bad boy right here. And the reason why is because I believe the V2 is going to be more harmful than good. I believe that they're going to introduce things in the Libero V2, if they go forward with that, that are going to harm Libero. And then now we're going to do all this stuff to try to fix Libero in the short term, and then Libero starts getting harmed because of what they do over here, because they haven't solved the underlying problem. That said, consider that V2 could allow them to introduce good things. I think the circuit breaker is a good change. I do think the circuit breaker would help a little bit for those significant dips. I do want to see this. Ultimately, I don't think the V2 would otherwise help because it's not solving the real problem, which is the way the rewards are issued out of the bank. The fact that you can get the Libero rewards and you can sell it straight and dump it right back into Libera, rob Peter, pay Paul, that's what got us here. I don't see that this one moves the needle. I don't see that the new tax structure moves the needle. I don't see that there's anything they can do to stop it. I understand they're trying to do something and they're in desperation mode. My call to you guys is consider if you are in LIBERO Bank, the ex-Libero that was issued to you, which is in your wallet and it's probably hidden, is what makes this vote happen. And I recommend that you lend your voice and put a vote in for what you believe should happen. Just have the core understanding. You have 2 essential choices. If they do a V2, they're going to change the fee structure and the tax structure and everything in the short term until the V2 is released. Or they change nothing, there's no V2, and you just wait it out. There's risks either way. Waiting it out, though, and the reason I chose the wait out one, waiting it out at least tells us whether or not the bear season we're in right now is part of the reason why people are not buying. Like, we haven't answered why there's no buys on the dip yet, other than possibly skepticism seeing the red. But we can't prove it because we're not in the bull run yet. We don't have Bitcoin back where it needs to be. We don't have BNB fully back where it needs to be. We don't have the core tokens back, so we don't really know what effect those might have on putting the price back up and then triggering FOMO buy. We don't know that yet. I'm totally against any V2 if I can avoid it. I think that if they go with a V2, it's going to be more harm than good, is my opinion. I could have it wrong. They might do that one beautiful, brilliant, and put everything in there perfect, but I think it'll be disruptive. especially if they try to do the airdrops. And if they can't figure out the airdrops because it's in the bank and they can't do it right or something else goes wrong, I think it's risky business. I'll flip it though. Some people might take it and say, okay, a V2 is coming. I'll stack bags now that it's on the dip in anticipation that the V2 is going to be higher. Remember though, if they don't change the supply, it's not going to make significant price difference otherwise because you still have the same problem in place. That's why I think if they go V2, they're going to have to change other stuff that's going to piss some people off and we won't get any win out of it. So it's up to you. It's your money. And again, this is only if you're in the bank. If you're not in the bank, there's nothing you can do because they didn't care about those. But you have to choose. Either we do a V2, and if we do a V2, they're going to put these short-term hacks in place around the tax structure and the sell fees and all that for now to try to stop the bleed a little bit and then build a V2, whatever that V2 is going to look like. Or we change nothing and just let it ride and then wait and see what the future holds, including if these core tokens are able to recover effectively. And then we have to see if there's FOMO buy. We don't know. Either side they both have risks, and we don't really know. So I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised because I suspected they were going to have to do something if they wanted Libero to survive. Because again, if Libero fails, Libera is Libero. Libera cannot exist without Libero. So they had to do something to save it. And this is the reason why I wasn't too much a fan of spinning up Libera the way that they did. And I would have rather they kept it the way they were doing and get on the American exchanges to keep the momentum. Something clearly went wrong where they weren't able to get on at least L Bank. And now they're reacting. They're just reacting to whatever it is. We also have to see, because remember, Libera is wrapped Libero. So now, how does that affect if you do a V2? You can't just swap the token that's wrapped inside the Libera. So how do you do that? Do you do a buyback? Do you do a Libera V2? Do you see what I'm saying? Like you could get into a deep rabbit hole off this business, all because this was poorly thought out and they rushed into a thing and didn't take the time to try to anticipate what might go wrong on this business. So I can't guide you on how to vote. I can't tell you what to do with the vote. I can't tell you the pros and cons of the vote. I can't tell you which way is better, or I don't think either one's better than the other, frankly. All I'll say is I voted not to go V2 just because I feel like it's disruptive, from my personal opinion. And I think the other ones aren't going to solve the problem. I just don't. I think the volume's too low. I think it's too late. If they had done this like maybe a month ago, maybe I could be sold on doing the emission and the sell tax. Maybe. But they'd have had to do it like a month ago. They'd have had to do it back when the price was still above pre-sale price. Then I could see it to try to stop the bleed, get a V2 in place while there was still some positive interest in the project. But now that there's been so much harm in the eyes of the investors, the only way that you're going to be able to spur any additional interest now is try to do another campaign, partner with somebody, which they don't seem to want to do for whatever reason, or decrease the supply. Maybe they do the V2 and then they cut the supply back down to the launch supply. The launch supply, if I recall, was like 15 billion or 5 billion or some lower number than what it is. So maybe that's what they do. Maybe they just basically reset and then turn off the excessive printing for Libero. Well, if they do that, now the value of Libera goes out the window because now you don't have really a differentiator other than the fact it's on exchanges, which does us no good because the Americans can't get on the thing. I don't understand their thought process. I don't understand why they weren't able to anticipate this, because it's obvious in the structure that they built. Everything would have been fine during a bull run, during a bull season, everything would work. But when you have a bear season and you just launch stuff and launch stuff and launch stuff, and you're just not thinking, mind you as well, we still got the Phantom Libero sitting out there and it needs to be solved. And we haven't solved that either. This project, this eco's got some issues. And I don't know what I'm afeared of, as they say, is there's excessive amounts of just doing. They're just always doing something with no forward progress because it's like treading water because you still have the bear season surrounding you. So no matter what they try to do, are the bulls going to come out? Is it going to stay bear? Do things get worse? We're seeing Ethereum dropping more. If Ethereum's pegged to go down to like 1,200, I don't know what to think about this one. I can't say for a fact. All I can tell you is if you have your tokens, your Libero, in LIBERO Bank, I do recommend you vote on the DAO, whichever option makes sense to you. And again, but you have to be in the bank to be able to do that. It's on libero.financial. The Libero DAO is linked on the left near the bottom. And then connect your wallet through whatever you use, and then place your vote, and then it'll use your ex-Libero to calculate your stake for the vote. And as I said, so far, the winning vote is that there's going to be a V2, mostly because of the whales voting for that option. And there will be some sales tax, which isn't going to stop the sales. And the amount of Libero that people get is going to go down, which isn't going to stop the sales. So it is what it is. If anybody has any questions, though, I'm happy to answer them best to my ability. Some things I can't answer because they're not really clear about why they're doing stuff. But if anybody has any questions, please, by all means, I will do the best I can to provide you answers if you do. Okay, looks like there's no questions. Not a problem. If anything comes to you, feel free to leave the comment after this publishes. I wish I had a better answer for you. I don't, but I'll give them credit for at least trying to do something. I just don't think it's going to move the needle like they think it will do, because I don't think it really fixes the underlying issue, which is the rewards, the way the rewards are issued, as opposed to being staked automatically into the bank. Time will tell. We have to give them a chance and see if they can work it out and kind of go from there. And then other projects are spinning up that are trying to usurp attention from these. So you could also have where people dump off instead of going to the V2, and it might make it worse for all we know. Investor sentiment is one thing you can't regain. Once you've pissed off investors, it's hard to get them back because a lot of them are preventable mistakes. And if you make continuous preventable mistakes, you're going to piss the investors off to the point that they badmouth your project. They go elsewhere, take the money elsewhere. And whatever you were trying to do to save the project isn't going to be helped by whatever it is that you were trying to do. It reminds me a lot about EarnHub, and I hate saying that, but that's what it reminds me of, EarnHub, where they waited too long to try to fix something that they had implemented broken. And once again, to be clear, I'm not a naysayer, futter, whatever. I'm hoping they pull it out. I'm saying I'm not confident this is going to work the way they think it's going to work, because it's not fixing the problem. The problem to me is the issuance of rewards as opposed to forcing it to go into the bank. Don't allow people to sell the Libero that you gave them. If you're constantly feeding them Libero every 30 minutes, don't let them just sell it instantly. You're creating that arbitrage. That's what I believe is the problem. As long as they can do that, it's not going to solve the problem, whether you have a V1, 2, or 3. I think it should issue the rewards into the bank so that it's forced to stake for at least 30 days so that it's not just immediately sold. That way, the only Libero that's sold are if people had directly sold it from their wallet, period. And if they sold it from their wallet, who cares? You couldn't stop them anyway. But the stuff that's in the bank, the rewards coming from the bank, everything else, you should not be allowing them to just dump on your project like that. And that's what we're actually welcoming them dumping on the project, and that's unfathomable to me. So, anywho's, libero.financial, the Libero DAO on the bottom left. If you have your tokens in LIBERO Bank, I do recommend that you go and place your vote for all the good it'll do. Now, of course, you might look at it and agree. Just start over with a V2 and try to stop the sales. Now, you might agree with that as an option when you read it. So be it. They love you. I don't think it's going to work any. All right, folks. That's all I had to update. I wish I had better news. I don't. I guess all we can do is give them a chance, see where it goes. Comments or anything, leave them in the box below after this publishes. I will do the best I can to get you a response. And once again, shout out to the tribe members for their incessant push to try to get these jokers on the right page. And of course, it did work. I am off now to chat with or get prepared to chat with them this afternoon as we ramp up and start our preparations for the token work that's going to be taking place in June. See you guys, and thank you for dialing in tonight.